Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Thank you for joining me today. I'm going to be coloring in this book, Mythographic Wild Winter by Joseph Catimbang. And I have really struggled in the past with the outcome of my pages in these books. So I'm hoping this will be my turning point. I always see so many amazing finished pages, but for me, the pages can be a little intimidating with so much line art, so many things going on, and then most of these books do have some hidden objects in them. I know some of the newer ones don't have any hidden objects or not very many, which I don't think this one has a lot of hidden objects. So anyway, what helps me when starting a difficult page is looking for inspiration. So first thing I needed to figure out which page I wanted to do, and flipping through here, the page that kept coming back to me was this one, with this otter kind of up in the sky. You have the northern lights, and then you have this little hiker girl here at the top of the peak kind of looking up in the sky here. So this one kind of was in my mind for maybe a couple weeks, and then when I was doing my filming for completed pages video, I was in this book showing you guys, and I had it flipped to this page because I was talking about the page that I did with this artwork, and I saw this page kind of glancing at it and noticed this star constellation, which I was like, oh, that reminds me of the otter page, which has kind of that same star constellation, so you can see inside the otter here. Now I really love the colors, the color palettes on these pages, so I thought, well, why not try to use this color palette on this page? So that's kind of my thought that I'm gonna do, my inspiration for this page. Now, the other thing I was kind of wrestling around with was the Northern Lights. I've never done Northern Lights before. That's one of my goals this winter. And so I've been doing a lot of looking at reference photos with either, artists doing Northern Lights, painting, oil pastels, color pencils, and some in coloring books, some just other artwork. I've looked at real photographs. I've looked at like computer illustrations. So what I found was that a lot of them are very bright and, contrasting with dark skies. And with this color palette, I wasn't sure if the brightness, like those bright teals and greens and yellows, were gonna fit with kind of more of this subtle, cooler palette. And then I found this picture, which I'll put up here on the screen. It's a little bit more monochromatic, more of a subtle Northern Lights, not so bright and intense. So I thought that would fit better with the color palette of this. So I'm trying to get these both in view here. So I think for the sky, I'm going to do these darker shades. I'm going to be using Prisma Colored pencils because I feel like that's a safer feel for me using those. And I think for the Northern Lights, I think I'm going to do like these lighter shades. So not quite as intense, like a brighter green. At least that's what I'm hoping that I can achieve. And that it will still stand out like the Northern Lights, but yeah, we'll see. So I'm gonna keep these yellow, like in here. I'll probably have to use acrylic paint. I might have to mix some, because I don't think, I have paint pens, but I don't think they're gonna be this right color. And then the trees, I can either keep them with more of the greenery showing, or I can do something like this where it's a little bit heavier snow involved there. I can always add more stars in the sky. The otter was my other big challenge. I wasn't sure exactly how I want to portray the otter because obviously most otters are darker shades, dark browns, grays. So I think I might try to do something a little bit more lighter, like this one. So keeping it more on the white spectrum with some light blues, grays, maybe lighter purples for shading and for the fur. So yeah, so that is kind of where my mind is at with this one. Like I said, I'll be using probably Prismacolor pencils, definitely for the Northern Lights, and not sure about everything else. So that's the very beginning stage of my thought process. All right, so let me get this stuff ready to go, and I'll go ahead and start. Okay, for the sky, I'm wanting to create a dark kind of tealish gray. So I'll be using a combination of this Peacock Green 907, 901 Blue Indigo, and a gray. This is a 936 Slate Gray. And then the lights, I'm going to be using a combo of 920. This is light green. Maybe some of this sap green light. This has a little bit more yellow in it. This is 120. A gray green light, 289, and white for blending and burnishing. I have a few more colors set aside in case I want to add any more colors into that light effect. There's a pink, a yellow, and a teal. And I'll show you a small section that has the sky and the lights, and then I'll finish off camera. I'm doing a light pressure of 907 first, just to get some pigment on the page. All right, and now I'm doing a light layer of 901. That is the deep blue. So just going right over with another light layer. All right, and then I'm gonna do the green again, 907, and I'm gonna press a little bit harder now. Right, and then repeating that with the deep blue, just a little bit harder pressure. And for this stage, I'm leaving a little bit of space, like a little bubble around the edge of those spiky northern light patterns. That way I can blend them in better with the sky. All right, now I'm taking the 936 Slate Gray. This is going to give it that gray tone that I was wanting. And I'm pressing really hard, burnishing and blending. These colors just kind of melt together, creating that tealish gray effect. All right, now I'm going to take 920. This will be the darker green of the Northern Lights on the top end of these shapes. And I'll just color outside the lines and blend in with the sky. All right, and then this color green is going to fade to white as it gets to that bottom edge of those shapes. And so I'm just kind of feathering the edges, just kind of flicking some colors. So heavier pressure up at the top of the peaks, and then lighten pressure and kind of flicks down towards that bottom edge. All right, this color has a little bit more yellow into it, so I'm not sure if I'll use it very much. I'm just gonna see how it blends in here. All right, now fading it to almost white, I'm using that 289, which is just a really, really light green. And then just kind of blending it, hard pressure up towards that green, and then bringing it down closer to the bottom. I'm leaving the very bottom white, and I might go in with a white Posca to white out those lines, but again, we'll see what it looks like at the end. All right, and now I'm picking up 922. This is a light aqua, and just kind of mixing it in with that green, just to give it a little bit more color variance. Okay, so I finished the sky and the northern lights, and even though the line art is still visible, I really like the way the green kind of bleeds into the sky. I think that turned out good. I did do a little bit of erasing with an electric eraser and just made this a little bit lighter in through here. And then any part that I colored a little too heavy around some of that bleed through, I just erased a little bit and then went back over with that lighter green and even some white to kind of help bleed that in just a little bit more. All right, so now on to the trees, which will also be in green tones. I'm going to use, this one is 1021 Jade Green, and the Peacock Green again, a 907. And then I'm also going to use a G7 Ohuhu marker. This is a really dark foresty green color. So there is snow on these trees. I'm not going to be too, excuse me, too careful because I'm planning on going back with a white Posca over all the snow. Excuse me, and get rid of the black lines on the snow. So if I get some green in the snow, I'm not going to be too worried about it. The only thing I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do yet is the little hidden objects. They seem to be all kind of in the tree and the snow here. So some of them might be easier to cover up. Some of them might be okay to leave. Like the little rabbit is okay. This like arm and hand kind of creep me out, so I may just cover that like it's snow. Okay, so I will get started with that. All right, using the color 1021 Jade Green, this is just going to cover all the branches on the tree. All right, now I'm using a 907 Peacock Green and using it close to the trunk of the tree and just kind of flicking it out. And the dark green marker will be for the trunk of the tree, and then I'm also going to add some underneath each of the snow, almost like a shadow for underneath the snow. Using white now to smooth out some of those lines and add some highlight to the ends of the branches. All right, now I'm using the white Posca and I'm gonna cover up the black lines that outline the snow. And again, if I want anything covered up, then I can just cover it up with the white Posca. Now for the otter, I want to keep it looking as white as possible, so I'll be using a very light shading with these colors. 1086 Sky Blue Light, 1026 Gray Lavender, 1059 Cool Gray, and 936 Slate Gray. Starting with the darker color, I'm wanting to put in the darkest of the shadows first. These are going to be around the very edges and like in between the toes, all around like the creases and underneath things. All right, and then I'm just going to kind of blend that out with the lighter blue and then add a little bit color variation with the lavender. and adding the most of the shadows with this very light gray. And I just keep building it up until I feel like it looks right. All right, I'm using a little bit of black for the nose and to darken up the eyes and inside the ears, just to give it a little bit more contrast. Now going in with the white Posca, adding some highlights and some little hair strands or little hair fuzz around the edges. Now for the water streams that come off the otter, this is where I will incorporate more blue tones. 901 indigo blue, I'm putting this all along the edges and around the folds. Then I take the lighter sky blue, blend it with the darker, and pull out some of that darker blue into the lighter. And if I need to go over it with the darker again, just to give it a little bit more contrast, then I can just go over it again. All right, and I'm using those same colors into this iceberg here, and I'll also incorporate some lavender and probably some green in here too, just because it would maybe hit the reflections of the sky. And then taking the white Posca to highlight and add a little bit more white inside the mountain. Okay, time to add some other colors in here. I'm going to be using this Y121, it's a Ohuhu marker, for this flag here. And then I'll also be using it on the little bags around her hips. All right, and then this is RV260 for her snowsuit. All right, and I'm just using that lavender to go into these creases. All right, and then I want these little kind of frills around the edge of her jacket and her hood and her boots to look white. So I'm just going to be shading with some of those lavenders and light blues and grays. All right, this pink is 929. Let's see, it is just pink. So I use that just to brighten her suit up a little bit. All right, I'm also going to use this pink for some of the snowflakes, just really lightly coloring it in. I'll do a light blue snowflake, probably a light lavender snowflake, and then I'll use the white Posca to outline around the snowflake, covering up those black lines. Okay, now I have the snowflakes done, and I also went ahead and used the white Posca to fill in the bigger stars, and then just little dots with the white Posca for smaller stars. Unfortunately, I don't have a pale yellow paint pen, which would have been really nice for this part. So I'm just going to use Americana Craft acrylic paint. The yellow is banana cream and then some white. I'll mix those up just to see how light I can get this. And yeah, we'll see how this goes. And I'll be using a very small detail brush. And I'm just trying to cover up the black lines. My star shape isn't nice and pointy like theirs, but that's okay. And I will have to do several coats because the black line does kind of poke through when it dries. Okay, I'm going to carry on off camera and I'll see you after this. Okay, the star constellation is done, and I did have to go over it about 3 times to cover that black line, but I think it looks pretty good. And now to add some sparkle. All right, I'll be using this Coliro Pearl watercolors in sterling silver and then some Stickles. I don't see the name of the color on the Stickles, so it's just kind of a clear with almost like a pearlescent sparkle to it. Great for snow. All right, and then to apply the watercolor, I'm just going to use a water brush. Blob some water on here and let it sit so I can mix it up. And this one I'm going to put into my snowflakes. I don't want to cover up the color completely. I still want the pinks and the blues to shine through, but I just want to give it kind of a very pearl shine. And the Stickles I'm going to use in the snow on the tree. Okay, all finished. Here are my final thoughts. I'm actually pretty happy with this one. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I haven't really liked the outcome of my other Mythographic pages. The colors are really pretty together. I feel that everything that I wanted to stand out stands out in a cohesive way. The sparkle and the snowflakes and the trees and the mountain adds a nice wintry touch. Even though the Northern Lights aren't your typical colors that you might see for Northern Lights, I feel like you can definitely tell what they're supposed to be. I didn't white out the outlines of the Northern Lights, but from a distance you do get that light glow effect, and the outline doesn't really stand out or distract. All right, let me bring in my inspiration page and the color palette inspiration. So here is that page. And yeah, so you can definitely get the feeling of the color palette. Mine is definitely more on the green side, but I still feel like it has some of those same colors that I was trying to get. I do have some of the yellow and pinks incorporated. I feel like it doesn't overtake the page, but it adds a little bit to the palette. All right, that is it. Thank you everyone for joining me. Hope you have a great day and see you next time.